They thought no one would find out, but even the silence betrayed them. A plan formed in shadows just met the justice of light. You were the target, but the aim just turned around. Heaven didn't forget what they tried to erase. Your name was found beside their sin. They didn't see the angels tracking every move. You were walking into fire. God broke the path. The plot was strong, but prophecy was stronger. You were surrounded by danger disguised as loyalty. The one they trusted is the one testifying. They planned a secret. God exposed it in daylight. You were never meant to see the plan, but love insisted. The arrest is not random. It's divine rebalancing. A voice in uniform whispered the truth you always felt. You weren't crazy. You were chosen. They smiled, knowing what they signed against you. The report wasn't written in ink. It was written in fire. God sent the sirens before you lost your breath. You were protected by prayers they never heard. The person you trusted helped write the lie. They forged your fall, but the blueprint burned. There's a name in the case that will break your heart. What was buried beneath silence just grew thorns. You almost forgave what was never confessed. They called you dramatic, but the files call you victim. You were kept safe not by distance, but by divine delay. The phone call they didn't make just cost them everything. They mocked your intuition. Now it's evidence. What they whispered is now recorded. A higher power shielded you long before law intervened. They feared your light, so they plotted in the dark. You outgrew their control. That's why they tried to cage you. Their hands are shaking, not from justice, from exposure. You won't need to testify. The truth already has. They wore a badge. God saw a mask. The innocent one always gets attacked first. The one you defended was the one who betrayed. Their text messages are now on divine display. God heard it all when you thought no one did. Their reputation was never real, it was rehearsed. You escaped something the world doesn't know was hunting you. They planned your end like it was their beginning. What they formed in secret is now falling in pieces. You asked God for a sign. He sent officers. They played judge. Now they stand trial. The evidence had your name, but not your guilt. You didn't deserve this, but you were ready for it. Your silence was never weakness. It was holy protection. They hated you for surviving. Now they fear you for knowing. If this touched your soul, don't scroll. Comment your favorite quote and subscribe for more. They sealed the plan with a lie. God unsealed it with fire. The story they told is now unraveling in court. You almost loved your assassin. They used your kindness as a weapon. The moment they signed your name, their fate shifted. Someone powerful was covering it until God uncovered them. What was plotted in darkness is now in headlines. Their name is written beside yours, in shame, not glory. They didn't realize angels file reports too. You saw the red flags. You just prayed they'd turn green. The truth was too loud to stay hidden. They dressed the danger in affection. God intercepted what would have broken you. You were spared by a whisper you didn't hear. The police found the plan. God found your healing. They never expected you to survive this sacred. The first to accuse you was the first to fall. They claimed to protect you while planning your fall. The one who said, "Trust me," was already plotting. Your name became a threat to their secret. Their arrest is your divine confirmation. You saw it in a dream. Now it's the news. They traded your peace for power. What they hoped would silence you is now your testimony. You were a target, but you became a trumpet. They feared your voice. That's why they aimed at your soul. The day they plotted, heaven marked them. You were chosen for the storm. Now you shine after. Their betrayal has finally met divine justice. The case isn't just legal, it's spiritual. They blamed you for what they planned. Your tears watered the truth that's now blooming. You were one signature away from ruin. The person you loved led the wolves. You are rising while they beg for silence. God let them dig the trap, then flipped the earth. Their pride will now speak under oath. What they said behind your back is now court-recorded. The evidence doesn't lie. But they did. You were meant to die in that betrayal, but resurrection found you. You were never theirs to silence. They weaponized the truth. God disarmed the lie. The charges dropped on them. Your peace rose with you. They underestimated what a kept soul carries. You were rescued in silence. Now you speak in fire. What they thought was buried is now breathing. The same hands that hurt you now tremble with exposure. They wore respect like perfume, false and fleeting. You never looked back, but the past is now knocking. They didn't just hurt you. They recorded it. Your protection wasn't police. It was prophecy. They deleted the evidence. Heaven kept the backup. The storm they sent has returned home. You thought you lost. You were actually delivered. The name behind the plot will break hearts when revealed. They smiled in photos, knowing what they planned. You trusted the mask. God saw the monster. Their fall was slow, but justice is loud. You don't need revenge. The truth is now viral. They laughed during the planning. No one's laughing now. Your life was on the line. So God drew one. The danger they created was meant to become your silence. You were too bright to stay caged. The same people calling you crazy are deleting their messages. You didn't ask for this, but you survived it sacred. The powerful one behind it is now powerless. The setup failed. The spirit prevailed. What they did was evil. What you carry is holy. They targeted your heart. Now yours beats stronger. The truth doesn't apologize. It exposes. Your spirit knew before your eyes could prove it. You survived something they still don't believe you know. They used your name. God reclaimed it. Their downfall is your closure. Your silence was divine warfare. The headlines are just catching up to your prayers. They wanted your soul, not your silence. The law moved late, but heaven moved first. You felt the shift before it hit the news. The voice you lost will become your sword. You forgave them, but truth didn't. Their names are now in files and flames. You stood in innocence while they whispered murder. The cage they built now holds their shame. You didn't forget. Heaven didn't either. Their mask was expensive, but it's cracking. What they did became a prophecy against themselves. You were marked for death. Now you're anointed for purpose. The person you warned them about was always right. They wrote the script. God ended the act. You were never the villain in the story. Their fear of exposure is louder than ever. The room they met in now echoes with truth. Their shadow just stepped into judgment. You carried pain with grace. Now you'll carry power with peace. The plot was perfect until God said enough. They gathered in secrecy. You rose in glory. You walked away from the plot like it was smoke. They underestimated who walks with you. If this touched your soul, don't scroll, comment your favorite quote, and subscribe for more. Heaven wasn't late. It waited for the sirens to expose what was whispered in shadows. You weren't paranoid. You were protected by prophecy. They didn't just watch, they waited. And now the watchers are being watched. Your name was found inside a plan to break your spirit. They plotted in silence. God answered with sirens. They used your trust like a weapon. But truth has fingerprints. You weren't the target. You were the trap for every hidden enemy. A uniform didn't find it first. Heaven did. Their alliance was sealed with betrayal. Now justice knocks. You weren't supposed to survive this plot. But grace outsmarted every plan. They prayed for your fall. The investigation uncovered their prayer. The danger wasn't random. It was crafted for your light. You were marked. But so was the date of their exposure. A powerful name was protecting them, but it just bowed to truth. You were never alone. You were under divine surveillance. They smiled while hiding a sword. Now the blade is evidence. What they buried with silence has now been subpoenaed. They played with shadows, but heaven lit the room. You escaped not by chance but by calling. Your intuition was your body's last warning. You listened just in time. The trap was set, but it caught the one who designed it. You were almost erased. Almost. The report has your name, but also the name of who betrayed you. You forgave, too early, but God still kept the receipts. You heard sirens. Heaven heard a lie unravel. Their protection is gone. Now their face is in the open. The enemy was too close. That's why the spirit screamed. You were being watched, but not forgotten. They thought the plot was sealed. It was documented. You don't need revenge. You're already the story they can't silence. They held your name in meetings. God held your breath in mercy. The arrest wasn't for your enemy. It was your confirmation. Your safety was bought with someone else's exposure. You slept through the hour of danger because angels stood guard. They planned your silence, but God planned a microphone. A powerful figure was hiding behind your pain. Now their front-page shame. What they thought no one saw is now evidence. You were the prayer they thought was powerless. They wanted access, not accountability. You almost trusted them again. This was your final warning. Their authority has limits. Your protection doesn't. What they thought would be your ending was the beginning of their exposure. You weren't saved by accident. You were spared on purpose. Their text is now on record. Their secret no longer sacred. They knew what they were doing. They didn't know who was watching. Your peace was disturbing the ones who plotted chaos. Their whisper turned into a warrant. They underestimated the angels. You never needed proof. You were the proof. If this touched your soul, don't scroll, comment your favorite quote, and subscribe for more. The ones who smiled loudest were the ones who almost ended you. They had a plan. Heaven had a camera. Your spirit shivered because truth was approaching with handcuffs. Their status can't protect them anymore. The phone call you missed saved your life. They're being questioned. You're being elevated. God interrupted what they rehearsed. The names in the case will shake your faith, but not your future. You're not imagining the shift. The spirit world has spoken. Your tears weren't wasted. They watered your escape route. They studied you like prey. God taught you how to fly. The letter was sealed, but your name caught holy fire. You avoided their trap by choosing peace. What they sent for harm now testifies in courtrooms. Your intuition outran their ambition. A powerful figure tried to cover it. Now heaven is uncovering them. They thought silence was safety, but truth found volume. You didn't see the weapon, but you felt the aim. The call wasn't random. It was rescue. They practiced their lie, but truth didn't need rehearsal. You were a setup for divine reversal. Their lie aged poorly in the light. You were on their list, but God removed the ink. Someone high up knows the full story, and their hands are shaking. They loved your downfall. Now they'll watch your destiny unfold on headlines. The ones who had power are losing their grip. You saw it in a dream. Now it's happening. Their cover is shredded by truth. What was done in the dark is being processed in light. You outran what was meant to break you. The most powerful one in the room just whispered your name in fear. They underestimated divine backup. The case is deeper than you know, but you're protected at every layer. You asked for truth. It arrived with flashing lights. What they signed sealed their own exposure. They called you crazy. Now you're calling them history. Your discernment outlived their deception. The powerful are being brought low. It started with your name. You walked away, not knowing you dodged chains. Their silence was strategic. Now it's sentencing. Your prayers went where lawyers couldn't. They branded you the liar. Truth branded them the exposed. The table flipped. You didn't even have to touch it. Your innocence made them furious and foolish. Their guilt echoes louder than any siren. You never fit in because you were never meant to fall with them. The plot failed because it wasn't heaven approved. They underestimated the one you belonged to. They tried to remove your name. Now it's being redeemed. Their end was sealed when they spoke against you. You were never the pawn. You were the prophecy. Their plan was tight, but God breathed. You don't owe them closure, only distance. Their plot was detailed. Their exposure will be louder. You survived something you didn't even know was happening. The one they served can't save them now. You gave mercy. They gave malice. Justice chose sides. The higher the power, the greater the fall. Their status shielded them until heaven called time. The darkness around you was manufactured, now dismantled. They wrote your name on a plan. It's now written in light. They met in private. God showed up public. You almost gave up. But divine timing is proof you're meant to rise. Their voice once mattered. Now it's irrelevant. They buried it in policy. But heaven found the file. The storm came. But you weren't meant to drown. They studied your silence. Now they fear your voice. The system failed you. Heaven didn't. Their backup is gone. Yours is eternal. You didn't have to fight. Heaven sent justice. What tried to frame you now sets you free. You were marked, but also guarded. They feared exposure. Now they live inside it. You didn't pray for this, but God delivered it anyway. They built a wall around your name. Truth broke it down. You were set up, but also sent. Their script is ruined. Yours is sacred. They were powerful, but not prophetic. God caught it all before you did. They put you in danger. You were already in destiny. What was done quietly is now in divine display. Your blood was not theirs to spill. The plot backfired. You remain. You were their experiment. Now you're the evidence of grace. They weaponized access. Heaven revoked it. You were betrayed by someone paid to protect. Their smile came with shadow. You carry the sun. You weren't ready to know. But now you must rise. They thought God wouldn't intervene. He has. You've been spared for something louder than their secret. The false peace is ending. Prepare. You've been vindicated in rooms you've never entered. Someone is shaking because your name still lives.